good morning. Thanks for being here. Thank you, World Football Summit, for the invitation. But first of all, thank you for your time, for being here today, talking about women's soccer, or women's football, which, by the way, has become a personal obsession to me. And I think it's safe to say that women's soccer is no longer an emerging movement. It's not something that's going to happen. It's happening right now and real fast. It's a global rising force, I believe. So, brands, leagues, teams are building this new ecosystem. And I want to underline this word, new ecosystem, or at least a different one. So I want to capitalize on your expertise, positions, experience, etc., to explore together what's working, what's not, what are the challenges that we're facing, or that we're going to face, and what's the future ahead of us. Is that okay?
Sure.
Yes.
Awesome. So let's start. By the way, I want you to feel free to hop on the conversation whenever you feel like you want to do it. So let's start on a positive note, and I want to start with you, Mariana, with what's working, okay? Liga MX Femenil has seen remarkable success and growth in recent years, recent months in particular. Fem Donde Sea has been a very successful project, proving or demonstrating that there's a huge fan base out there. So please share with us what strategies have you employed in building this distinct fan base and this distinct brand identity.
Well, first of all, thank you, Aldo. Obviously, to WFS, thank you for the invitation, and it's amazing to be able to share this panel with you, so powerful ladies. Well, yes, you just mentioned it, Aldo, Fem Donde Sea, but let's call it our content hub. We decided that we want to be a distinctive brand, and for that, we needed to know our fans. And we decided that it was important to democratize women's football, right? We didn't want to be premium. We don't believe that women's sports right now should be exclusive. So we decided to make it free. And with that idea, we built this around 3 big initiatives. That is a multi-platform digital strategy, a fully dedicated content hub for creating content around only Liga MX Femenil, which you can amplify a lot of stories. But there's also something very interesting around this, that you get to know your fans' behaviorals. And that allows you to customize the experience with your brands, that you can engage much better, that I know Danielle will talk about that later. But that helped us obviously increase 2 things. The first, media value. We increased viewership from around 10 million the last tournament to 30 million, because it was not only around YouTube or social media platforms, because we also added linear TV, paid TV, which allowed us to become massive. And second, it allowed us to increase by double our partnership deals. So that was super relevant, so we can keep increasing not only viewership, but what we always say, and we were discussing this backstage, is building community, letting these players take the big stage and have a showcase that, well, around all these big cities that will keep cheering and rooting for and advocating for women's game, no?
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mariana. Honey, from your perspective, and from FIFA's global perspective, what strategies have you proved successful in terms of accelerating the women's sports, women's football in particular, from a financial or commercial viability perspective?
Thanks, Aldo. First of all, it's my pleasure and my honor to be here in Monterrey, which is also a host city of the FIFA World Cup, which is happening just next year. And yeah, I hope one day that we will not need a women panel to discuss women's topics, you know. So I believe women topics have to be in each panel integrated, and in terms of everything, commercialization, globalization, development, and all of that. But just going back to your question about how we accelerate the success of women's football. We believe at FIFA the pace is going really fast because of investments and because of implementing regulations. For example, club licensing. We have increased the club licensing for clubs and leagues by far 79%. This means that also coaches' qualifications have increased to 60%. In the past, women's football has always been a charity, like we know. We used even to go to ask countries and hosts, can you please host the Women's World Cup? But recently, specifically after the Women's World Cup in New Zealand and Australia, this has been a great shift. Why? Because we had a leader and the leadership at FIFA, Gianni Infantino, our president, he even pushed the broadcasters to, emphasize more in supporting women's football, because broadcasters had 100 times less than men's World Cup broadcasting. And for the first time ever, FIFA had a separate deal contract with broadcasters for women's football. In the past, it was just an addition, kind of. And that specifically increases the attention for women's football, because the more we broadcast women's football, the more it's popular, the more people are investing in it, the more sponsors will jump on it, because when you increase broadcasters, sponsors will jump on it, and therefore we will start generating revenues. But until 2019, for the FIFA Women's World Cup in France, FIFA never generated any revenues from the Women's World Cup. Our main revenue is just from the Women's World Cup. But in 2019, they reached an equation that it's not a loss and it's not a gain. Therefore, the FIFA management said, this is the time to move women's football for another level. Now the expectation is so high for the Women's World Cup in Brazil in 27, because the expectation to generate more than 1 billion revenues, because we have seen, specifically when we talk about the Americas, the last Women's World Cup, for example, the matches that we watched by Brazil was more than 11.5 million fans that watch women's football. And that's accelerating the process. Investments, when we invest, it's coming back. So giving every girl a chance, from the opportunity to the infrastructure to the visibility, because visibility is important. That's why we also have FIFA Plus as part of the globalizing the game to produce all matches. We have more than 11,000 matches produced annually for women's football. We also have aligned with partners like Lenovo, for example, for AI, artificial intelligence, fan engagement, also supporting women's health through different programs around the world to ensure that every woman has access at all levels, from the grassroots level to elite level, but also expanding the Women's World Cup. For example, now, if you know, the Club World Cup is happening in 2 days. Actually, the opening of the Club World Cup is going to happen in the USA just on the 14th of June, with 32 teams from all around the world. FIFA now gave the chance for women's football to have a Club World Cup, which will kick off in 28. So expanding the competitions, giving more chances to women, not only the Club World Cup now, but also in 2031, the Women's World Cup will expand from 32 teams to 48 teams. This gives an opportunity for a lot of countries that they have never ever dreamt to be in a World Cup, to be part of it, and to participate and have the dream to one day compete at a World Cup level. So that's all together FIFA's policies, having a commercial strategy, because we have seen in the benchmarking report clubs that has a benchmarking had a commercial strategy, the revenues has been double than the ones who didn't have. So commercial strategy is important to advance women's football. Leadership is important. Policies in place are important to ensure that we are not just talking about women's football as a charity, but as a project, as a business case, and as a brand.
It's a matter of frameworks, right? Opening doors for this to happen, actually.
Absolutely. FIFA is opening the door, and it's on the right path to also start from development, the 211 member association, to go all the way to the top, because for now, women's football for us is much more than just the game. It's bigger than that. It's visibility, it's storytelling, it's engaging with the women at all levels, protecting their welfare, their rights, ensuring that they are treated well, even on social media platforms. There are no abuses and all of that. So FIFA is taking all the measures to ensure that's into place to protect women at all levels, on the pitch and off the pitch, but also ensuring that they also become leaders as well. That's why we have different leadership programs for women to empower them to lead as well, because we are encouraging inclusivity in FIFA at all levels, from the grassroots to elite level. So we need women also to be in positions to lead as presidents, as secretary generals, as club presidents, and all of that, to ensure that one day they will be also leading in the top.
Awesome. I mean, talking about this new ecosystem, it's not just about the players or the teams. It's about the fans also. And Danielle, you guys are amazing delivering intelligence reports, data points, insights, etc.
Yes.
But beyond those, let's call it viewership points or data points, could you share with us some data or insights that could help us explore the impact and the influence of female fans?
Yes, thank you all, and I'm so honored to be here. We had a great conversation before the panel, so I know it will continue to be great. You know, it's interesting, at my company, Wasserman, I work for our women's practice, and our mission is really simple: to continue to show that the investment in women makes sense, hard stop. And a lot of times we're talking about women's sports here, but I think your question is actually on women fans. And leading up to the Men's World Cup, it's like, oh, well, where do women fit into this equation? We did some data recently, a global study. 72% of women around the world are sports fans. 72%. So almost 3/4 of women consider themselves sports fans. And that could be of men's football, that could be of F1, that could be of women's football. And yet we continue to see these stereotypes still that either put women as making the snacks or being the supportive partner for their very passionate male partner, right, who is a huge fan of men's sports, and they're just kind of in the background. And we need to start understanding how we can speak to women in ways that their fandom is celebrated just as much. It is not less than. If I'm being completely honest, I think sport fandom globally has been built on a little bit of patriarchy. So it's time for women to start saying, hey, I want to be communicated to. I'm spending the money. I'm deciding that I want to put my kids in the ecosystem to start playing football. I'm the one that is deciding whether we buy those tickets to the match that's upcoming, whether we make a trip to the Men's FIFA World Cup. So speak to women as they want to be fans. And so some of the ways we do that is a lot of what Mariana just mentioned: building community, understanding these stories that are behind the scenes. It's not just about your stats on the pitch, but it's about who these athletes are, whether they're men or women, and women really relate to that. So I think if we can challenge brands who are, like Lenovo and others that are activating to really understand women fans as well, we'll all benefit, not just for society, but financially. These women are driving our economies. We need to start paying attention to them. And given 72% are sports fans, what better place to do that than the sport of football holistically?
So we're talking about 35%, 40% of the world, right?
Absolutely. Well, yeah, exactly, because about half are women, and then you have 72% of them are avid sports fans. And out of those, 1/4, so 25% of those women, consider being a sports fans one of the most important things in their life, over their family, over their religion. They consider their fandom, they're really avid fans, but we're missing the mark still in 2025 on how we actually can speak to them and get the most out of celebrating this fandom in a different way.
Thank you.
Yes.
Grace, it doesn't stop there. I mean, we're talking about women on the pitch or on the field, women as fans, but also women inside the industry at decision-making roles.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you what structural changes, I mean, leadership models or whatever, have you found successful in building successful and sustainable careers for women in sports?
Thank you. That's a great segue into my part of the soccer industry, which is very much behind the scenes. Women in soccer. First of all, can I just say hi? Thank you. Gracias, World Football Summit, for inviting me. It is personally deeply touching to be in the city of Monterrey, la ciudad que me vio crecer. Aquí estudié la carrera. fueron mis inicios profesionales y simplemente muchísima gratitud por este momento. After I've said hi to all my Mexican people.
Great Spanish, by the way.
Thank you.
Very good.
You know, Women in Soccer has the unique perspective of being the industry partner that is solely focused on increasing the representation of women and non-binary people, and let's use the gender expansiveness of the term women as well in the industry of soccer. And people that have been historically left out and underrepresented, it is incredibly important for organizations like us, especially at a time when our geographic focus is the United States of America, when diversity, equity, and inclusion is so heavily under attack. Organizations like us need to step up to the pitch, right? And what we see is there's a problem from a pipeline perspective. It's a talent pipeline. If you don't have women coming into the sport, even at an entry level, you're never going to have a woman rise into a leadership position. So when you think about leadership, you need to think about the entire ecosystem, right? And the way that Women in Soccer does this is by building a network of over 10,000 members now and growing. Watch us continue to grow. If you're not a member yet, join. You should. It is just an amazing way of A, finding community, and B, building in such an organic way by connecting with people that are passionate about the sport, that have the skills, because it's not just passion that brings you into the industry. You also need to be qualified. You need to be an expert in marketing and sponsorships in the different fields that you're belonging, but what better than leveraging someone who's already embedded in the sport, deeply committed, loves it with a passion, and then how can we nurture that talent and find it and grow it, right? So Women in Soccer does this by many different ways, but first and foremost, we're trying to grow our network as much as we can so that we can create and provide a talent pipeline to the industry and satisfy that need, right? When people say, I'm tired of hearing people come to us and say, we just can't find qualified women. And I'm like, well, you're looking in the wrong places. So organizations like us hopefully will continue to emerge, and there's a call to action for places that don't have organizations like us yet to create this sense of this network, this community that is creating also a feeder and a pool of talent. And it sounds so transactional to say it this way, but at the end of the day, passionate women that are interested also, again, talking about these high percentages of women that care so much about the sport, how do we make sure we bring them into the industry as well?
And I believe that it would be a mistake to see this just as a women's problem, a women's challenge. So my question to you is, what can established male leaders can do,
My favorite.
to accelerate that progression?
Yes. Thank you. This is one of my favorite conversations because so many men approach me and they say, oh, women in soccer, I have a mother, I have a daughter. How can I help? Like, what is my role? And I do, while I do not believe that it is our role to educate those in pathways and how they can support, I will gladly stand and raise my voice to start signaling where we can start. So there's 3 simple things that I always call our male allies into action with. One is, let's acknowledge the reality that we're living under. You cannot solve a problem if you don't address it as a problem. So we have a diversity problem, yes. Can we all nod our heads and agree? Great. Okay, so now that we've stated the problem and with humility and self-awareness, the number 2 is build in diversity and equity into your strategy. Right? We've talked about the benefits of having a diverse workforce. There's so many studies by Deloitte and all these different consulting firms that say diverse executive teams will perform 35% better than their counterparts. It is a missed business opportunity to not think about diversity as an integral part of your organizational strategy. You are leaving money on the table. So if you are a male or a woman, it doesn't matter, regardless of gender, if you're in a position of leadership and diversity, equity, and inclusion is not at the core of what you're doing, you are leaving money on the table. And I will let that money do the talking for you. So that's number 2. And number 3, and especially for men that find themselves in those spaces with those women, my ask is intervention that is timely, that is thoughtful, and that is intentional. How many times, and all of the women in the room I'm sure can nod their heads when you say, I was speaking at a meeting and then someone cut me, right? Someone spoke over me, or I said something and someone repeated that in the same words and that got the acknowledgement, right? So timely interventions when you're noticing that discrimination is happening, it's very subtle and we need to really, really get quiet and fine tune to when those moments happen. But when they do, say, oh, wait a minute, blah, blah. Can you please repeat what you were just saying? I thought that was really interesting. Like, bring the spotlight back to the woman, not because we need it, but because that is a way of you showing your tangible support in that moment. And so, to the men in the room that are in positions of leadership, make sure that you are showing up for women, not just by giving advice and having good wishes. We need action. And if that isn't translated into action, we're never going to make progress. So if you are in that place, and yes, it will take some of your social capital, be bold, be strong, and stand up and say, hey, by the way, this thing, or, you know, this person has not spoken yet, and I'd love to, you know, make space. Literally, physically, we've been in conversations where the circle is kind of moving like this. Open up the circle. If you notice that someone is there, literally bring them to the table, allow them a space that they very rightfully deserve, but they're not in this moment having. So 3, call to action. 1, self-awareness, let's address the problem. Number 2, embed diversity, equity, and inclusion into your strategy. And number 3, if you are in those spaces and you have the ability to intervene, make that intervention timely, tastefully, obviously, gracefully, pun intended, and make sure that you are creating those spaces not just with your words, but with your actions as well.
Thank
Can
you,
I
Grace.
just add to that, going back to the fan, of course, but I love, Grace, what you said, because even as a fan, you know, we say all the time, oh, bring your daughter so they can see their role models. How about bring your son, right, to a women's football match? We're seeing, you know, this next generation, it's called reverse socialization, and for the first time, whereas we might have had our sport fandom, or all of you passed down from our parents, liked a certain club or a certain athlete, and we kind of, you know, found that when we were younger. Now we're seeing this next generation who are fans of these women on the global stage because they have exposure to them. There's more media rights. They have social platforms where they're sharing their stories, and we're seeing more and more even boys and men. There are more male fans of women's sports than there are women. So women's sports is not just for women, it's for men too. Yeah. So I would extend that to say, you know, take your son to a women's football match, expose them to the amazing women that are out there, and they'll start to see it as not one or the other, but just that they are now sports fans. And I think that's what we all hope to see with our next generation.
Yeah.
Thank you, Danielle. It was your dream, honey. You said it on a TED Talk. And there you are. It was your dream working at FIFA, and you're in a leadership position. Could you share just one key takeaway of your career building up to that position that you have?
I would say one takeaway is there are so much talent everywhere around the world, whether we talk about rural areas in Mexico, in Monterrey, or slums in India, or favelas in Brazil, or refugee camps in Jordan or Syria or wherever. There are a lot of children, boys and girls, specifically also girls, with talent. All what they need is the opportunity and the visibility. And when I used to play football in the streets of Bethlehem, borrowing boots from here and there because I never got a proper shoes to play football, all what I wanted is to be given an opportunity, to be given a platform, and for visibility, for someone to see my talent. And the takeaway is see the talent in the room. You know, everyone has a talent, everyone has a potential. Even at a leadership level, there are women in the room, but they are not given the opportunity to excel and to move forward and to show what they can do. And sometimes, you know, much better than other guys in the room, I would say. So the takeaway is always important, the transformation from those little girls playing in the streets to those leaders in the boardrooms. Because I have been there. I have been in their situations. I know what they feel. I know the talents they have. I know the hard work they put in, the fight, the resilience, the resistance, to be seen and to be admired for their talent and for their hard work. But many talents just, you know, go away. But I insisted and I fought hard to be what I am today. And that's the message I could also give, as also Grace said, just also fight to be included. Sometimes it's also okay, because if you are not fighting to be included, nobody will include you. For sure, nobody will include you. Because sometimes you are just different to them, you are from a different continent, you are from a different region, from a different background. So you need to fight to be included, unfortunately. And that's why where the man comes in the room and say, no, we believe in women's rights. We all have a woman at home at some point, and we understand that through this we can build a successful organization that leads with diversity and inclusion without having those men giving the opportunity so far. Unfortunately, still women will not progress. Like I refer to what happened with the broadcasters when Gianni Infantino, the president of FIFA, pushed them to do so as a man with broadcasters, then a change happened. But until today, men are deciding on behalf of women. And until this will change, and then we will see women deciding on behalf of other women, that's where the acceleration will happen at all levels. But until then, we need the men, obviously, to say, yes, women should be included, women should be in the boardroom, women should be in the executive level, women should be CEOs, C level, etc. And that's the takeaway from those girls who are just looking for an opportunity, for a hope, for a dream, to make their dreams come true, to who will be there to make their dreams come true, to give them the platform, the visibility, tell the story as well. Like you said, role models, to create role models, to create a story. Now a lot of girls look up to all these women in the room, whether it's from Mexico, from USA, say, yeah, there's a woman that looked like me, that I could become like her. But when I was a young girl, I didn't see that woman that I could look up to her and say, oh wow, because women's football at that time was not as developed as today. So now we have the platform, we need to invest on it, we need to build up on it, we need governing bodies, we need FIFA, we need all the organizations to ensure that we are moving forward. That's why we are having the Women's World Cup platforms. That's why FIFA is organizing the World Cup in Mexico to give platforms not just for boys, but also for girls. We also need to use the platforms for Men's Cup to embrace Women's World Cup. I had conversations how we can leverage the World Cup in Mexico to empower girls in Mexico. This is the discussions we need to embrace while having men's tournaments as well, and not just focus on the men's tournament per se, but ensure that all society included to be part of a decision, to be part of the game.
Thank you, honey. Now, let's talk about challenges, or other kind of challenges. And Mariana, I want to ask you, what's the biggest challenge today for Liga MX Femenil in terms of commercial sustainability and maybe increasing its global reach?
I want to mention, well, by the way, I'm cheating. Here are my notes. I wish my English was as good as your Spanish, Grace, by the way. But let's take a step back. Because we all have mentioned a word, a specific word that we sometimes think it's very common, but it's not. It's strategy, right? How can we build a strategy that's realistic, ambitious enough, but it's realistic, and action, take action. And in the Liga MX Femenil right now, I can say that we're actively expanding our fan base because it has to do with everything that you mentioned. You just mentioned, for example, no, 73% of women are sports fans, but how can we see them in action? One, I think there's so many challenges, so many. But the one that it should be meaningful for all of us is that we need to be relevant and keep being relevant in a very competitive landscape. So how can we increase the fan base, but also how can we compete in the sports level? I don't know if I'm very passionate, but I've seen our teams and our players play for a long time. And this side of the region is one of the most powerful regions in the women's landscape. And I can tell you, honestly, we're gonna become champions much, much sooner than the men's side. So that's off the record, guys, by the way, but I honestly, I really believe that. And that's something we need to share. And that's something that we have to take an action on. So we've been building collaboration with NWSL to build a competition, international competition, so we can improve our level. And we can compete, for example, as you just mentioned, at the club level. We just play, the players, Tigres and America played Champions Cup. And they were defeated, but by the worst score ever in the last minute, probably against Gotham, right? Against the most powerful country in women's soccer. So I think that building that strategy together with clubs have been also driving their strategy around how can we invest in better conditions, as a league, bring policies that can also build better conditions for players, for clubs. And it's so important for us also to sign top international players because everyone will increase the game, but also visibility, right? Sometimes having it on the pitch is important, but off the pitch, it's also important because then they can share stories and we can learn about those stories. For example, Jennifer Hermoso, no? We have new, very talented young players that we just saw them yesterday playing for the pre-championship, no? Very young players, 16, 17 years old, like Montserrat Saldívar, or Ali Soto, or Alex Soto, that are players that now have game changers, that have advocates. And I think another side of the story for the challenges and barriers are parents. You just said that. Let's take the kids, let's take little boys to watch these big game changers. But you need to also educate. And we need to educate parents. And if you have competitive or winning teams, if you have big names on the pitch, if you have strategies, if you have investment, parents will also notice that sports is a huge competitive advantage for human skills, no? And also for community.
I think that we can say that there's a strong business case for investing in women's sports right now. But I want to ask you, Danielle, what's preventing tons of companies or brands to invest in women's sports growth?
Yeah, it's the question we try to answer every day. And we'll start off this way. If I was to say to any of you, if you can invest $1 here, you'll get $1 return. Or if you can invest $1 or peso here, you'll get $20, right, return, so a 20 times return. And inevitably, you would say, well, I'll take the 20 times return, right? Like, I want my money to work better. And in fact, our amazing team that my colleagues with Wasserman here in Mexico did a study that if you invest on the sponsorship side, so brands that are investing in women's football, so give Mariana your dollar, because they are returning 20 times more. And so we've treated, I think, for so long on the commercial side for women's sports, we've treated women's sports like the little sister. You have to buy it with, right? You have to add on the women's property with FIFA. If you're going to be a FIFA partner, you have to take this. And so it's really hard to change the conversation for these global brands to say, I shouldn't have to take it, I want it. And I want that to be the lead. And if you look at the actual dollars and cents, it's more affordable right now to invest in women's sports, but that doesn't mean the return is less than. It's actually a lot more than. And so I think the biggest challenge is just educating from the commercial structures that we've been in, where it's been seen as an add-on or you have to I want to and I can see the value. Yeah. And I think as soon as we get brands in and they see that, they're like, give me more. Give me more. I want to invest in everything because they see that return. So if we can do a better job at really understanding or helping brands and investors understand who the fan base is, why they're so valuable. They're 2 times more engaged with the women and the properties overall. They're getting so much more value for their money. So if we can just show them that and get them in the funnel, I think we'll do a really great job. So money over here.
We love you, Danielle. Yes. Very good. Excellent.
Last year at the World Football Summit, the picture was completely different in terms of women's soccer. So I cannot think of how it will be in the next 1, 2, 3, I will not even talk about 5 years. So, the time has run up. I want to thank you again for your time, for your work, and let's see how it goes in terms of time with women's soccer. Thank you very much, and thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aldo.
Do we take a pic?
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.